Dear Church, it's been a long 5 weeks since we've been together, right? I hope you and your families are staying healthy in body, mind, and spirit during these trying times. At this time, I want to give you some important updates about what we've been up to at Christ Church and some important considerations for how our decisions about the future will work given the federal government's gated criteria for reopening the country and restarting the economy. But first, here's a little bit of ancient history you might recall. At the beginning of March, the church council and we first met to discuss a path forward for worship and activities and church operations given the developments about the coronavirus. We agreed at that time that it would be best to suspend in-person worship and gatherings at church until it was deemed safe by the public health, denominational, ecumenical, and government officials. Within hours of our first meeting, Governor Evers declared the safer at home order. We are proud to have taken this seriously, and we believe it's an expression of our love of neighbor. With the encouragement of the council, I then went ahead and developed an action plan that I have largely stuck to, with the exception of a few items changing here and there, like the frequency that I put devotionals on Facebook, things like that. Ever since we decided to suspend in-person worship, our church office administrator, Debbie, and we have hit the ground running, and we put together worship services for two distinct groups of people every week. We put together a service for computer and technology users, and we put together a paper copy, a hard copy for persons that would prefer to receive something that they can hold on to in print. A weekly worship bulletin is mailed on Thursdays, and the emailed one goes out every Friday. What started off as a simple recorded service now requires several days to complete. It's become way more involved from start to finish. I've been posting devotional materials to Facebook several times a week. Debbie and I have found devotional materials that we've been emailing out to you, and you'll be receiving some even shortly this week. We've been hosting Zoom coffee hour services together after worship every Sunday at 10:30 a.m., just for an hour, hanging out. Debbie and I have been working our way through our church directory, calling and emailing everybody possible with the contact information that we have for you. Even though we haven't been able to connect in person, one of the great things that's happened is that we've had a lot of reconnecting taking place at Christ Church, whether through Zoom, Facebook, or our weekly newsletter, or the monthly mailing, the Chronicles. People seem to be reconnecting with our church after long departures or connecting with us for the first time during this crisis. I see that as a hopeful thing. To be blunt, however, COVID-19 has negatively impacted the church in some ways. Our financial health has really taken a hit. We did not gather this past Easter in person, and we will feel the impact for that for some time, probably into the summer and fall. This was a responsible move on our part, but it has real ramifications for the church's financial solvency. And furthermore, when the economy struggles, we all tend to tighten our belts a bit. I recognize that. I feel it myself. It can be hard to feel generous when we feel like we are anxious about giving in the first place. So it's understandable. To seek relief from the pandemic, the church had an ad hoc financial team consisting of our church treasurer, financial secretary, stewardship chair on the council, our church accountant, and myself. And we have worked together to apply for a federal government relief program through the CARES Act. You may be familiar with that. There were small business loans that were issued and that churches were eligible to apply for. Unfortunately, the program ran out of money before we could even submit an application. But fortunately, we have now submitted an application. We have it completed, and we're basically waiting in a queue to see if more money drops in federal relief and is available for churches in the future. We also had general fund money available in our endowment that was put aside specifically for the future of the church. This is general fund money in endowment, okay? And this money we had to draw from to help pay for some immediate overhead expenses and to help kind of put aside and create a little cushion for us in the event that we had a shortfall. This is a short-term solution, but your consistent, generous giving, that is a long-term solution. Okay, thankfully, many of you have continued to give even as we haven't been able to gather in person. So I want to express my deepest thanks and gratitude for those of you that have been able to do that. I am thankful for you, and that is a hopeful thing for me. Finally, I want to discuss with you the future of the church with respect to the three-phase plan that the federal government recently released about opening up the country again. Given the federal government's criteria for reopening the country, places of worship can reopen if they observe strict social distancing guidelines during phase one. Okay, phase one. Just because the government says that it's acceptable to open doesn't mean that it's safe for us in our particular church to open. And friends, as much as I would love for things to go back to the way they were back in February, when everything seemed relatively normal for us here in Wisconsin, that time is sadly over. Worshipping in person, when we finally are able to do it, it will look different than it did back on Ash Wednesday when we last gathered and I smudged the ash cross on your forehead. What will church look like with strict social distancing measures put into place? Will it still feel like church, the church that you know and love? I think it will, but it will be very different. Strict social distancing measures means that we will have to have people sit apart in the pews. It means that we probably won't have a choir that's live singing together. It means that we may have to wear some sort of PPE, like masks or gloves, and definitely sanitize way more than we do. It means that we may have to eliminate things like paper bulletins or anything that you might touch. It means that we might have to restrict bathroom use or refrain from serving food or put a cap on the amount of people who can be in the sanctuary at one time. Okay, all of this is hypothetical, okay? But as a pastor, I want to let you know that I want to make sure that you're safe. And I want to let you know that I am more concerned about your safety and your health in the church than our government is. They have a job, and I have a job. And my job in this house is to make sure that you are safe and healthy, and that we're doing everything we can to minimize the spread of disease. I want you to know that the Church Council and I will be taking the federal government's guidance into consideration. However, we must also make an informed decision about when we will open our church for worshiping in person, along with other various factors, such as what our state leader says, what our neighboring churches are doing. We don't necessarily want to be the only church in the tri-state area that's open. We need to take the consideration of the guidance from the Wisconsin Council of Churches, again, kind of the ecumenical authorities, like what do they say? And we also want to listen to our local medical authorities. If there are people at the local hospitals are saying this is a terrible idea, we're probably going to heed that advice and listen to them. We want to make sure that when we do settle into a new normal with in-person worship, that it can be meaningful, but most of all, that it will be safe and that we will not contribute to the spread of disease and human suffering. With this being said, church, it feels like a lifetime ago that I sat down in my office, just right around the corner here, and just after having admired the empty church, and spoke to you from the heart about what our plan would be moving forward. As the situation continues to develop and the administration, the state and local government, and church leaders for the UCC and Wisconsin make more details and plans available, we'll continue to act decisively, and I'll continue to keep you in the know about what we need to do about the well-being and future of our church. So friends, please stay healthy. Until we see one another again, I hope you remember that germs and Jesus are everywhere. So God bless you. Wash your hands. And thanks so much for listening. Have a great day.